How?
Simple. Angle in equals angle out.
Angle of what?
The angle of incidence. It's the angle at which light hits a surface.
That makes sense. Incidence. For the angle light comes in.
And out's the angle of reflection. The angle at which light bounces off a surface.
Reflect means bounce off. I get it.
So when light hits smooth, shiny surfaces like water, it reflects
refracted, but we'll talk about that in a later video. Now what's interesting is you can have different wavelengths of light interacting in a different way with the medium itself. Some could be reflected, absorbed, or transmitted, and that's where we get the color of objects and what colors they actually have. So let's start with reflection. If we were to look at this leaf, what color of light is being reflected from the surface of the leaf? Well, it's green. Since it occurs as green, we're getting a reflection of that green light. So reflection, remember, is a bounce off of the surface. Now what's interesting is on that bounce, if you draw a normal, which is going to be a line that's perpendicular to the surface, as light is reflected, the angle it comes in at, we call that the angle of incidence, is always going to equal the angle of reflection. In other words, this angle right here is going to equal that angle right there. What if it comes straight in? Then there's an angle of 0, and so it's going to bounce straight back. If we're looking at a mountain in the reflection of a lake, that's going to be reflection that's causing it. And so you know the mountain is not down in the lake. And so how did that image get to your eye? Well, the light from the top of the mountain is reflecting at an angle off of the surface of the water, and it's going to your eye. And so it appears as though it's down in the water, even though it's not. Absorption is different. Absorption is when the light hits the surface and is converted into some other form of energy. Generally, it's going to be heat. And so if we were to look at this leaf, for example, what light is being reflected? It's going to be the green light. And so what light is going to be absorbed? It's going to be the red light and the blue light that's being absorbed. And we can even look at an absorption spectrum of the leaf itself. There are two pigments in there, chlorophyll A and B, and what they do is they absorb a lot of that bluish, purplish light. They absorb a lot of the reddish yellow light, but they don't absorb a lot in the green. And that's because the green is reflected back to us. Now what's neat is a leaf can actually make use of that energy to do photosynthesis. Now light can also be transmitted. That means that it goes from one medium to another and it just goes right through that medium. And so if we were to look on the underside of a leaf, we're going to see a lot of green light coming through, but also some of that blue and red light's going to make it through as well. And so some plants have evolved a barrier on the bottom. And so you'll see some leaves that on the bottom are reddish bluish on the bottom.
Created using Powtoon.